Happy Friday, everybody. I'm Brendan Bradley with the Fifth Wall Forum, committed to bringing together industry insiders from the theater and technology worlds to create opportunities for new kinds of virtual performance. And today I'm having a conversation with Agnes Carolina Bakk, researcher at Moholy-Nagy University of Art and Design, founder of the Zip Scene Conference, and a member of Team Houdini, who presented the machine stops at our March reveal. Today's conversation is brought to you by the Fifth Wall Forum Discord channel, a robust community of hundreds of technologists and artists sharing job postings, tutorials, upcoming performances, and the home of Artifact Friday, where our members and collaborators share artifacts from their work, giving Fifth Wall Forum members a first glimpse at the latest innovation in immersive storytelling. Find out more at our website at fifthwallforum.com. That's 5thwallforum.com. And now let's get to the conversation. Welcome, Agnes.
Hello, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being on the show today. I want to dive right in. How did you find out about Fifth Wall Forum?
Well, it was actually another VR-related online incubator organized by Stories Future and Garage Stories. And when we had the final closing event there, then Stephanie Ricks was mentioning this. And I was just like, wow, that's my PhD topic, PhD subject. And I'm really, really curious because I realize like how these online events can actually give me such a context where I can meet international folks who are just thinking about the same things that I'm thinking here in Hungary.
Now, speaking of that, you were a narrative designer on the machine stops, which is a term I feel like we started to hear a lot, but many don't know exactly what it involves. Can you tell us about designing a narrative for virtual space?
Yes, I can. Actually, narrative design is a very contested term.
Oh.
Because I'm coming from a design university, and their narrative design is more related to speculative design rather than to narrative design. But what we mean by it is just a newer approach to dramaturgy and like how to create narrative paths, especially in interactive experiences. And I also would like to add that I'm not the only narrative designer in our performance. We are basically all co-creating the narrative, and we are all sharing all the credits for everything currently, more or less. But it's a very intriguing path, and I really love to imagine and ideate to new kind of story types and story bits as well.
Now, so much of your PhD centers, I believe, around these kind of new narrative experiences and interactive experiences. What is kind of your biggest takeaway or kind of your central focus for your research?
My own personal research is actually focusing like how immersive theatrical engagement methods can be used in VR, and how new findings of the science of magic can be used in creating interactive VR experiences, mainly artistic interactive VR experiences. And just in a parenthesis, it was very funny that I could get into the Team Houdini, and I was like really like, yeah, I'm at the right place to be in Team Houdini, because actually I'm also working on a future VR experience that is focusing on Houdini. So my takeaway is just that we really should focus more on the experiencer and the experiencer's expectation, and how to create such illusions that are already maybe existing in other mediums or other performative formats, just like magic shows, and how we can rethink and readapt them into interactive experiences. And currently, my biggest takeaway is that actually the presence of the live performer is something that is very much needed in order to really create something magical. So I really love this idea of 5WF, and I thought like, yes, this is what I really would like to see and learn what other people are also doing in these terms.
There's so much conversation and debate about what makes theater, or what makes live. And I love that you're tethering it to the idea of kind of a co-presence with a performer. What else do you think it is about theater or magic that really lends itself to virtual reality?
Good question, actually. I think the unexpectable is something that is very important. And the unexpectable, that is not in that term that something just might happen as a coincidence to us, but just like in magic shows, like magicians are basically framing your attention that you have to observe something. And that kind of onboarding process to their magic trick is something, for example, that I think it can be found already in many VR experiences, and it's also worth to explore more. Improvisation can be another very strong, powerful tool in order to create more immersive VR experiences. It means that, like, the system meaning that also the context, also the performance, also the others who are in VR experience, they are responding to your gestures. They have actually something to tell to you as well, not that you are just also alone in that experience. There are other people. And like this technological gap, I mean, no, this gap that we have, but which is bridged by this technology, can actually bring these things more together. I, you just caught me in my middle of a PhD thesis.
No, I love it. I love it. The goal is to ask questions that none of us really know the answers to. What has been the most unexpected discovery in your research?
One of the most unexpected is that actually not something totally new.
Okay.
There are already some papers that are discussing video game narrative design from the perspective of the science of magic and how it can be used. And actually, if we think, for example, about branching narratives, that's also based on the false freedom of choice, because you think like you have total agency in a game, and then in case if you see a branching narrative, then you see these waves that are sometimes many branches what you can choose, but they many times go back. So this is another thing that I think like us as VR creators could use it, actually, that we want to give like a very direct sense of agency to the audience members, to the experiences, but it's also very hard. And it has not only technological barriers, but time, but possibilities. Also, the audience members have to know what they will get. And we are still in the stage when the audience members maybe do not know immediately what they will get, especially in a theatrical VR performance where there is a live actor. So there are a lot of obstacles, but the branching narrative and this illusion of like total agency that can be created with many tools, I think it's something that we should explore more.
I love the concept of agency, and that's really what I have found audiences gravitate towards early in VR. Where do you think that agency, a lot of the pushback I get at least, is like, well, we can't give them too much choice. What if they leave the theater? Do you see there being the kind of ritual or agreement that an audience makes to sit and become a part of a show? Or do you think the expansion of a metaverse allows someone to kind of wander in and out of the story because that is in effect giving them agency?
I don't think that total freedom is something that will make us as experiencers totally happy. And this goes back again to what I said previously about framing the experience, about drawing the attention, guiding the attention of what's going to come. I think this is actually more important, especially also in terms of agency. That yes, you will have a theatrical VR performance, but that's not a coincidence that we talk a lot about onboarding and what you can tell and what you should do in onboarding, and not necessarily already, for example, if you look at VR chat performances, what's happening in VR chat, but maybe how can we think of VR chat, pre-VR chat experience that makes the audience to onboard. I think this is, for example, at a very infancy level, but I think for many of us the favorite, one of the favorites example is the Tempest
Uh-huh.
by the Underpresents. I think that's a very lovely and very good example for someone to go through an onboarding process. But I might have segued away from your question. Sorry, what was your question?
No, I love it. For somebody who may not have played or experienced The Tempest, can you very quickly walk us through the show as well as what made it such a good example of onboarding?
I think I would not do the total walk through to the show, but how the onboarding was and how actually my experience to buy a ticket was that I just saw somewhere that, oh, there are again tickets to the Tempest, and I finally I had one Oculus Quest 2 at home as well, not only in our studio. So I thought like, okay, I'm just going to buy it, and I was like completely like, okay, I entered the application, but where can I find it? And there was a very naturalistically ticket vendor place where I could just basically go and find it. And it had very nice references to the outside world. And I think for a very long time, we still have to reference a lot to the outside world in order to make also the UX design, also the general audience feeling to be this welcoming. Because if it's also not very easy to find out or to create new traditions of going to online events. However, I think they are going to be very, very widespread, even if we can travel much easier.
I'm going to jump on something that you started to touch on because it is a conversation that I every single week have to deal with. And I want to steal your answer because you're far smarter than me and far more experienced than me with your research. So many people, when I talk about virtual reality theater, now that theaters are reopening, want to say, yeah, but is that even necessary anymore? Do we even need to keep doing that? What would be your response to why there is a future with virtual storytelling?
I have a very, of course, every opinion is very subjective, but but I think it's very important to actually keep this tradition and actually nurture this future tradition of creating online, especially, for example, in VR chat performances or like these online framed events where there is a live orchestrator or several live actors. And because many times, especially in Europe, we tend to use it like how important it is to bring new audiences to theater. And even though I know that you have to have, especially technologically, but also in somatically different kind of develop skills in order to become a VR actor, but I think you can really bring in new audiences, and you can actually make, especially young people, to have a concept of theater, which later can bring them into live theater as well. Like, maybe I would like to see that VR actor on live on stage. And this is an immense opportunity which we shouldn't miss it out, I think.
You started to touch into like modes of storytelling, the idea of watching a VR show in VR, but then also getting to see the VR actor performing. What do you think of creating in kind of tiers of experience or having a lot of different versions of the same performance?
If I understood correctly your question, then my answer would be like, actually, we would like to see that VR actor live as well.
Doing VR.
On a stage. Not in VR,
Okay.
live on a stage,
Gotcha.
in a real theater.
But not also puppeting.
I don't think that necessarily audiences want to see that kind of acting, because that might that would be very interesting to understand, like how this type of acting is working. But I think audiences want to see. I have to use again, sorry, this magical word of magic.
Yes, please.
But they want to see the magic, and they want to see the how the actors are in certain situations as a natural in their natural surroundings. So, for example, on a live stage, I would like to see the actor as a live actor,
Sure,
improvising or maybe having a discussion with me or initiating a discussion in an immersive performance, which would be even more interesting. But I would not necessarily like to see in there.
Right. Cool. I love it. Talk to me a little bit about the machine stops that you revealed in March and how the project came about and where it's going.
Oh, it's it's one of the biggest experiences that I could have throughout the lockdown, and I'm really really grateful to all you who created the 5WF, not only just to give us this opportunity to meet, but also the whole format. I think it's very very interesting, and also other hackathons should look at it. I just wanted to mention this. Um, with the machine stops, it was in the first 2 days it seemed so easy, everything. Initially we were 6 members, and one of our members who unfortunately had to drop out, Tina Lawrence, she mentioned that it would be interesting to look at IM Foster's The Machine Stops. And the reason why she mentioned it, because we were discussing like, yes, we are in a lockdown and we are a super international team from the US, from Europe, from several countries. And we are here in this lockdown, we can't meet. And what if we would just approach this issue, the concept of lockdown, from the perspective of a comedy? And comedy is, I think, it's a very very hard thing to create, especially in VR, to be natural. So we were also asking around the mentors who were there in the first 2 days, like, what do they suggest about this format? And we were going back, and then Tina came up with this idea of like, let's let's think of the machine stops, which is actually pretty much resembling, or was, I hope we can already talk in past tense, was resembling our lockdown period, that we are in our own little pods, we are communicating through very blurry videos, and we are exchanging, like, for example, even now, like, wonderful theoretical ideas, and the machine is providing us food and providing us all the comfort, and there are some ups and downs with the morality as we would see it now, and there are some questionable parts in life, but the question at the end is like, do we choose our comfortable pods, or do we want to see actually what's happening outside? And I think this is also a reflective great story that can actually reflect on the medium of VR. I mean, we think that this is a great story that is actually reflecting on the medium of VR. So we kind of remained stick to this idea, and yeah, then things just escalated very quickly. Like, our we, I think we have a wonderful team, and we are still working together. And immediately after 1.5 months, Kim Bauman Larsen, who is our like basically everything. Like, he's our production designer, just was always asking like, hey guys, okay, I'm ready to build up this, so please give me a script. Then we had to move on very quickly from gathering all the ideas and trying to find a common ground, what would be the main message of the machine stops in VR. And we immediately had to jump on like creating the first drafts of the narrative. So Nick Tiastra took a lead on this, and they developed this super fast, the VR chat world, and they started to play test and play around in VR chat with it together with David Goffeld, and also Carrie Schoenfeld. She created like this very crazy, absurd aerobic video in it, and she's also doing the creating the musical bits for it. So it kind of like everything started to take a shape. And I think in all the creative processes that there are moments of like, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and then suddenly that light always goes away. So we had a light in the middle of March when we had the reveal, and then actually we got very nice batches back, like who would offer their help, and we could take the contact with many of them. And then we decided just to move on. And in my free time, I work as a grant writer, project manager. So I always believe that deadlines are wonderful tools. So we just found the festival, the New Images Festival, where they have also an XR market, and we thought like, why not submit it there? Because then we will work more on our pitch deck presentation, and if we got selected, then we will have another push why to work more on the narrative part. and we got selected, which is a very great thing. Thank you.
Congratulations.
And then we started heavily to work more on the narrative part. And I think now it started to crystallize. And before the summer, we will have another run. And we are also looking for further grants that could allow us to develop more the project. So yes, this is where we are, and the team is still sticking together, and we have regular meetings on Tuesdays. So
that's amazing. And when would the festival be, or when would the run of the show be?
the festival was actually last week. It was a hybrid festival. It was partly online and partly in Paris. And back then, when we were selected, we were thinking like probably the lockdown will go on, so it would not worth that much to go to Paris actually to be there personally, but just to take as much as it's possible from the online parts. And we could meet some decision makers there, and we got actually very interesting feedbacks and questions that are somehow bringing us more forward to think about. But we also met our lovely mentor, Joanna Popper, and it was so nice that she remembered us, and she came back to us and like, hey, how are you guys? I know your project, and it was so nice to think with her as well together in the frame of the New Images Festival, like how to continue the project.
I love hearing the community still sticking together, still connecting. Like, that's what it's all about. It's fantastic.
I'm also inviting sometimes people to the 5WF Discord because I think it's also a wonderful resource. So I hope it will grow and grow and still will remain very focused on this subject.
Speaking of kind of mentorship and grant writing, is there a resource or a team member or a tool that your team is kind of looking for, or maybe even just your personal work with Random Error Studios that right now would help you overcome a hurdle in your process? That if you were reaching out to the community and you're like, does anybody have X?
It's a very good question. We have many professionals on board, also beside the core team of the team Houdini. But what I think we would need the most is an executive producer who would actually help us to think more strategically forward, like how this could be developed. Or we would reiterating our possibilities when preparing to the New Images Festival. We were also considering like a co-production partner would be maybe useful, like a studio who would say like, very interesting concept. Let's work on this together. But I think it's just going back to maybe some of your previous questions. The format is totally new. So it was actually challenging to pitch the project at New Images because distributors, decision makers, they don't see this format yet, but I think in 1 year this will be different. And we are also working on that, like how to include more audiences who have various ways of interaction. And I think that could be, for example, an interesting financing model later after the production is ready. So going back to your question, I think this is the main 2 points that we would look for. But basically, we are very happy if anyone would like to jump in and just ideate together. So in many ways, the narrative is mainly crystallized, but we are happy to show around in the VR chat world and to discuss and get new feedbacks, opinions, and anything, and later maybe more collaboration as well.
You said it can be difficult to distribute or kind of expand these projects right now, but you think we're a year away. What do you think the difference is that will take place over the next year?
Maybe it was a bit too optimistic, but let's say in the next upcoming years.
I'll take it.
But I think one main reason, and probably you know this much better, but there are more and more productions that, and these big festivals like Tribeca, for example, now, that are these theatrical VR events where there are live actors. And maybe this way producers, distributors will see like how actually this is feasible and how actually this can be the future of online event creation, not only necessarily to the thing is that we have to reiterate a little bit what theater will mean for us. That theater doesn't necessarily mean that we will go on the street, we will approach the theater building, we will go into the theater building, we will give our clothes, etc. But we will have a different kind of concept of how to think of theater, but it will have probably what I already mentioned, that this concept of liveness is, I think, what is going to define it. And there is always there is something at stake, and especially in this VR theatrical formats, you feel that there is something at stake. Maybe in Tempest a bit less. I mean, what I was just thinking, like, what could I do the most that I draw the attention of the performer on me? I don't want to reveal anything what I was thinking. But for example, in Finding Pandora X, I'm really amazed like how they took the risk of like actually enabling the audience member to speak. And it's more trickier in VR chat because there you are really not there phenomenologically with your body. So basically you can have this feeling that basically you can do anything. And I think this kind of like, there is something at stake and there is another live person who will react on my actions, something that will define our concept of theater in VR or theater in technologically mediated contexts. And I think very soon people who are looking for these productions to distribute will realize this and will look at it like, it's worth to invest into it.
In the meantime, if someone wants to invest in you, join the team, support your work, where can they find out more about your work as well as the work you're doing with The Machine Stops?
We have a... Thank you for the question. We have a Facebook page, which is The Machine Stops VR. Maybe this is the most easiest to remember. And there we there is our email address, and just reach out to us or reach out to me. And I think like all of our team members, all of our team members will be very happy to get in touch with anyone who would like to say something or who would like to suggest us something.
Well, thank you for getting in touch with me. It's been great to have you on the conversation and learn about the incredible work that you're doing.
Thank you, Brandon, for the invitation, and congratulations again for creating this podcast and the 5WF as well with your colleagues.
Well, none of it's possible without the beautiful work that y'all are doing, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much to Agnes Carolina Bakk for the conversation. If you want to join me on the show, find me online at the handle Brendan A. Bradley or go to fifthwallforum.com to find out more. I'm Brendan Bradley, wishing you a happy Friday, and I'll see you next time.